Walk down a street in almost any mid-sized American city, and you will eventually find an empty, overgrown lot. Then another, and another. These are legacy neighborhoods, the modest, functional subdivisions built primarily for the workforce between the 1960s and the 1980s. Over decades, the older housing stock naturally depreciates. Houses fall into disrepair, and occasionally they are demolished. But when those lots remain empty, it triggers a compounding financial crisis for the entire block. To understand why, you have to look at the central metric of real estate, comparable sales, or comps. The financial value of any property is dictated almost entirely by the recent sale prices of similar homes immediately surrounding it. This map shows how empty parcels break that system. When lots sit vacant, no new transactions occur. Without those data points, the comparable sales for the neighborhood hit a hard ceiling and flatline. Because the comps are frozen, the market value of the occupied homes is frozen too. This locks existing long-term homeowners out of the equity gains that homeownership is designed to deliver. Neighborhood decay is not just an aesthetic issue. It is a structural failure of the appraisal system that traps the community's value in a permanent freeze. Faced with this stagnation, city leadership often assumes that leaving a blighted parcel alone is a fiscally neutral choice. This graph illustrates the actual municipal balance sheet of a declining block. Blight carries direct, rising costs: constant code enforcement, heightened police responses, and suppressed tax revenue from every adjacent property. That suppressed value creates a vacuum. Because the neighborhood is now artificially cheap to enter, absentee investors move in to exploit the low acquisition costs. They buy cheap properties, raise the rents, and reduce owner occupancy rates. This accelerates the decline that allowed them to buy in cheaply in the first place. Stabilizing these legacy blocks requires the Neighborhood Price Stabilization Protocol, or NPSP. It is a strictly controlled, mathematical infill strategy designed to reset local real estate values without displacing current residents. In urban planning, inaction is an active choice with compounding costs. Reversing this trend requires a systemic, mathematical intervention. The most common hurdle for municipal intervention is the assumption that new state legislation is required. It isn't. Cities already possess the legal tools necessary to execute the NPSP framework. The primary tool is a standard development agreement. Adopted by a simple council resolution, this allows the city to mandate exact pricing, material specifications, and phased release schedules from private developer partners. To bypass standard modern zoning rules that might prevent infill, cities utilize neighborhood stabilization overlays. These allow for smaller setbacks that match the historic physical patterns of the existing street. Finally, land bank disposition legally wipes away back taxes and liens from vacant parcels, transferring clean titles to the NSPSP builders at a nominal cost. All of this happens in year zero. The municipality maps the vacant lots, secures the land, and locks in the legal agreements before a single shovel hits the dirt. The true barrier to entry is the strategic coordination of these existing legal assets. Year 1 initiates Phase 1. The builder constructs exactly 5 new homes on the acquired vacant lots. These homes follow strict NSPSP specifications, 1,200 to 1,600 square feet, simple finishes, and roof pitches mandated by the development agreement to blend into the existing streetscape. This data block breaks down the all-in development cost per unit. When factoring in hard construction, soft costs, and land acquisition, it costs between $195,000 and $230,000 to build each home. Here is the core financial paradox. Because the existing comparable sales are artificially depressed, these 5 new homes will appraise below their actual construction cost. To solve this, the municipality steps in with a gap subsidy. The city covers the precise $22,000 to $30,000 shortfall per home, but only for Phase 1. This initial outlay provides the mechanical impulse required to reset the street's economic baseline. This split-screen model demonstrates the legal ripple effect of Phase 1. By selling those first 5 homes at their newly appraised value, the city permanently establishes higher, verified comparable sales for the entire zip code. Moving into years 2 and 3, the program builds 10 more homes. Because the Phase 1 sales act as the new baseline, the appraisals for Phase 2 rise on the strength of those fresh comps. As the appraised value line goes up, the gap subsidy required per unit drops inversely. By years 4 and 5, the lines intersect. The neighborhood comps are now high enough that new sales fully cover construction costs. The subsidy requirement reaches 0. This brings the program into its stabilization phase for years 6 through 10, delivering a sustainable neighborhood value growth rate of 3 to 5% annually. As values stabilize, any sale profits above construction costs are captured and routed directly back into an NPSP revolving fund. Each phase mathematically engineers the real estate comps that make the next phase cheaper to execute. The system earns its own exit. Any municipal strategy must survive market volatility. What happens if buyer demand shifts or mortgage rates spike halfway through a build phase? NPSP relies on a strict build-to-rent fallback. If the for-sale market softens, the program holds and leases the unsold units for a 6.7 to 8% net yield. The city never forced a sale at a loss. The next threat is speculative capture. As neighborhood values rise, house flippers will attempt to buy NPSP homes and immediately sell them for a windfall. To block this, every home includes a mandatory 5 to 7 year owner occupancy deed restriction. If the buyer sells within that window, a profit recapture clause triggers, destroying the flip margin entirely. NPSP acts as highly structured patient capital. It is insulated from market downturns and legally fortified against speculative exploitation. Traditional affordable housing is often stalled by multi-layered funding complexity. NPSP avoids this by mandating one clean federal source per phase. This chart breaks down the NPSP capital stack into 3 slices. First is the city's 20 to 30% contribution. This requires no cash. It is provided through nominal land transfers and permit waivers. Second is the 15 to 25% federal gap subsidy. By utilizing a single source, like HUD Home or CDBG, the program keeps the compliance burden low. The final slice is a 55 to 65% construction loan sourced from a local bank or CDFI, backstopped by the city's first loss position. By intentionally stripping out the bloated capital stack typical of public housing, municipalities can dramatically accelerate their speed of deployment. With the land bank engaged and the capital stack simplified, a motivated municipal council can move from a policy resolution to the first completed occupancy within 12 months. Launching a pilot requires exactly 3 leadership decisions. Step 1. Adopt the framework. The Council passes a resolution authorizing NPSP as an official stabilization strategy. Step 2. Allocate the seed funding. The city designates the $125,000 to $150,000 required to cover the gap financing for those first 5 homes. Step 3. Designate a lead partner. The city approves a nonprofit CDC or a qualified small builder to execute the work under municipal oversight. The first 5 homes prove the model. The comps rise. The blight recedes. NPSP definitively breaks the cycle of neighborhood decline through highly disciplined, appraisal-anchored mathematical growth.